What is up, my valid peeps? Cadiant here. Back in October last year, I celebrated 2 years since returning to the channel by entering the Cadiverse. What ifs of me being in some of my favourite franchises, and that had Pokemon and Ben 10. In today's video, I thought I'd add 3 more to that: Ultraman, Gundam, and Transformers. With all that being said, let's get started. Right before we continue though, I just wanted to bring attention to the currently ongoing crises in the world. Among these include Israel's genocide and colonization of Palestine and other surrounding countries, the genocide and slavery in Congo, the war in Yemen, and the war and blackout in Sudan. If you could take your time to donate to these causes, boycott those supporting oppression, or even just spreading awareness about these, it would be much appreciated. I'll put some relevant links down in the pinned comment, and now, back to the video. So, all 3 of the franchises that I'll be adding to the Cadiverse in this video have a thing in common, being giants. Ultraman has the eponymous Giants of Light, and both Gundam and Transformers have giant robots. And I'll start with Ultraman. So, designing my Ultra was really hard at first, cause the design could go anywhere. But that's honestly quite a fun thing too. There's so many great OC Ultras I've seen in the community, so mine could be exactly how I wanted it to be. I started off with sketching out a rough design on paper, scanning it onto my laptop, and then using paint to colour it in. I did change the arms a bit from the sketch, but once it was done, I commissioned JK501 to make it in a more realistic style, along with something else for a Nana Cadiverse entry that I'll be featuring in a future Cadiverse video. And here she is, Ultra Woman Cadia. Gotta say, I love how her design came out in the end, and I even got some art of her done by Third Eye Artistry, and an emblem done by Koeg Heifer, both of which also look great. Cadia's finisher is the Cadium Beam, fired in the same position as the Spacium Beam. And she also has her own weapon which has its own finisher, so let's get to that right now. Now, at the same time I was making Cadia's stuff, I was making stuff for other Cadiverse entries, and on the weapon side of things, I already had 2 melee weapons, so Cadia's had to be a ranged weapon. Thing is though, I already had a bow in a Nana entry, which is really the only ranged weapon that Ultras used, so I put a spin on it by making it a bow gun instead. And I thought it'd be neat to make it based on Cadia's head crest. So I commissioned JK501 to make exactly that, and here it is, the Lumina Bowgun. This ended up looking pretty cool, and it normally fires just by pulling back the hammer and releasing it quickly. But by pulling back the hammer and charging the attack before releasing it, the finisher, called the Lumina Buster, can be executed. Now the last thing for Cadia is her transformation device, and this took the longest to come up with for her stuff. The name for it was easy, and I came up with it not long after I got the name for Cadia herself, the Cadiator. Actually figuring out a design though was a different and very difficult matter. Initially I just planned for it to be one of her arm gauntlets, but I realised that would be far too lazy, so I changed it. In the end, I made a draft transformation device in paint based on Cadia's head crest and the spark lens, and after commissioning JK501 to make it, I got the final product, and honestly, I quite like it. The transformation into Cadia would involve the user of the Cadiator holding the transformation device to their forehead and shouting, "Cadia!" That's it for if I was an Ultra. Now, on to the next entry. So with Gundam, I had to choose a specific universe for my character and Gundam to be from, and I chose Build Divers. It was the first Gundam show I watched, and there's really no limit for what Gundam your Gunpla could be based on. Before I show off the Gundam though, none are complete without their pilot. In this case, myself as a Gunpla Battle Nexus Online, or GBN, diver, known as Cady, whom I got designed by my good friend Third Eye Artistry, based on my real life self with a couple additional assets, and I love how this looks. Now for the main event, my Gundam! My series origin of choice for it was quickly identified, Witch from Mercury. It's my favourite Gundam series, and given there weren't any official build style Gundam from that series, I thought it would be rather unique. In the design process, I was initially just going to use a colour altered Gundam aerial rebuild that I made myself, since any good commission I found for custom Gundam was ridiculously expensive. After some brainstorming of ideas though, and a chance encounter on Discord with the user the Nebi Nova, who had made a build style Witch from Mercury based Gundam for a friend of theirs, I was able to request my own custom build style Gundam for completely free. Before I unveil my main Gundam though, I want to add that in having my own build style Gunpla made, the colour altered Gundam aerial rebuild I previously made was retroactively made my diver self's first Gunpla used in GBN, the Gundam aerial rebuild KD Custom, and my diver self's second Gunpla is the main Gunpla I use. Speaking of which, let's get to that. KD, Gundam Caliban Lefay. Let's go! Using the Gundam Caliban as a base, with assets from the Gundam aerial rebuild and a colour scheme inspired by the Earth-3 Gundam, this is my main Gundam, and I love how it looks. The artist also did an alt colour version inspired by the Gundam Mark II, and I like how that looks too. I got the idea for the name from the same vein as the Caliban, being Morgan Le Fay, both originating from Arthurian mythology. That is also the origin of the name for the Gundam's finisher, Buster Arthuria. Finishers are something of a staple for the stronger divers Gundam, and I definitely feel it rounds out my Gundam KDverse entry. Last up for the video is the entry for the robots in disguise themselves, the Transformers. It went without saying that my character would be one of the Autobots, and finding someone to make them was surprisingly easy, as I was already watching someone on DeviantArt who I knew took Transformers commissions for relatively cheap, that being Zero Geo. As much as I wanted to do my own completely original design for my Transformer, it would be significantly easier to base it on a Nano Transformer. My friend Dog's Aquarium helped start this idea. Having seen my first KDverse video, she put a bunch of Transformers animated body types together, which we went through, and by my process of elimination, Road Rage won out. In searching for additional ideas, I found 4 more inspirations, in the order I found them: Elita 1 from Earthspark, Nitra from Robots in Disguise 2015, Quick Shadow from Rescue Bots, and Override from Cybertron, that last one being a suggestion from my friend Wild Jack Media. Ultimately, I slimmed it down to largely being based on animated Road Rage, with a bit of Cybertron Override, since it worked with them having similar alt modes. With that and my personal colour scheme of amber and blue, I commissioned Zero Geo to make my Transformers OC in the Transformers animated art style, and here she is. This is High Drive, my very first Transformers OC and my Transformers entry for the KDverse. I honestly love how she came out in the end, even if I did neglect to mention my character's allegiance when giving the commission details, so the final design didn't have her insignia, but nonetheless she's an Autobot. Zero Geo doesn't do alt modes, but given High Drive's robot mode is predominantly Road Rage with a bit of Override, I imagine the same would apply to her alt mode too, so it would be a racing car. So that was my second KDverse video. I hope you all enjoyed that. A big thank you to JK5201 on DeviantArt for the main Cadia art, Lumina Bowgun and Cadiator, Third Eye Artistry on Twitter for the additional Cadia art and Gundam character art, Koic Heifer on DeviantArt for the Cadia emblem, the Nebi Nova on Twitter for the Gundam Caliban Lefay, Zero Geo on DeviantArt for High Drive, and Doug's Aquarium and Wildjack Media on YouTube for the inspiration for High Drive. A lot of people to thank, but this video wouldn't have been possible without them, so go check them all out. Let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Like, subscribe and share this video. Join my Patreon for just £2 a month. And with all that being said, I'll see all your valid peeps next time.